This is question number 7 of the IGCSE Human Biology June 2019 sample assessment paper 1. So the question says, the table shows the hearing range of different species of animal. So here they have listed a few species: a dog, cat, human, frog, and mouse. And here they have recorded the lowest frequency of hearing and highest frequency of hearing per hertz of all these animals. Alright. So the first part says that part A, identify the species with the greatest hearing range. Okay, so it is a 1-marker question. So since they have asked us of the greatest hearing range, we can compare their ranges by knowing the differences between the highest and the lowest frequency. And if you see carefully at the data they have provided over here, if you analyze it, you can see that mouse has the highest the interval between its lowest frequency and the highest frequency, which means its difference is very great. As you can see, the lowest frequency of mouse is near 1000, whereas the highest frequency is a 1 lakh, which is a very great distance from 1000. Hence, we can say that the greatest hearing range compared from all of these animals is mouse. Hence, the answer should be mouse. So let's answer this question. Here I have answered mouse. Moving on to part B. Part B says that describe a method to investigate the frequency range audible to humans. Okay, so it is a 3-marker question, and they have asked us to devise a method to describe a method from which we can investigate that at which frequency ranges is audible to humans. So here I have devised a method, as you can see over here. I have written that use a suitable known instrument to produce sound at a range of frequencies from low to high pitch. Then use a person ensuring they have no hearing disorders and record the data for indication of when they can hear the sound and when not. Okay, so here I have devised this method, and this method, when I have written it, I have kept in mind a few things that the source of the sound from where it is coming, the recording range that I'll be taking for recording purpose, and for basically the data that I'll be taking based on that, the recording ranges of frequencies and the pitches that is going to show the difference of the sound and how the person is catching it. And the person I'll be using that they may have no hearing disorders. This is a thing I have added on my own. And the last thing is that to record the data for indication of where they are able to hear the sound or not, so that I have a set of source, a set of the data provided the recording results, and then the determination. Okay, so here, since it is a 3-marker question, the mark distribution is simply from here that use a suitable known instrument to produce sound. So this is where the first mark distribution, first mark is, and then the next one is at using a range of frequencies from low pitch to high pitch. And the third mark is that to record the data for the indication of whether they can hear or not. Okay, so since we are done with part B, let's move on to the next one. Part C here says that the diagram shows a human ear. So as you can see, this is a ear they have shown, and part 1 says that name the structure KLM. Okay, so the place where the structure K, L, and M is, it is basically known as the middle ear. This part, these 3 bones that have been mentioned, K, L, and M. Okay, so these 3 bones are known as ear ossicles. The K is the first one, which receives the vibrations from the eardrum. It is known as malleus or hammer. Next one is incus or anvil, and the last one is stapes or stirrup, which is the smallest bone of the human body. Okay, so since we know these 3 bones from the middle ear, so let's answer this question. So as you can see here, I have answered that K is malleus, and L is incus, and M is stapes. Since it is a 3-mark question, when you're answering this question for the name of these three bones are very important. And mostly there's a question in many papers from this part of the middle layer. So, okay, so returning to the question, if they ask for the name of these three bones, you can either write down malleus, incus, or stapes, or also hammer, anvil, and stirrup. However, since if it is a new paper and we do not know what the examiner wants, we have to match according to the mark scheme in order to score the marks. So in case of that, we shall miss no information. You can always write down the real names, which are the malleus, incus, and stapes, and in bracket, which is basically for the safe side, to write the hammer, anvil, and stirrup also. Okay, so as we have secured these 3 marks, so let's move on to part 2. Part 2 states that describe the role of KLM in hearing. Okay, so it is a 2-marker question. So moving back to the diagram, if you look carefully at this diagram, let me tell you that this part is the outer ear, this part is the inner ear, and this part this part is the middle ear, and this part is basically the inner ear. Okay, sorry for the bad drawing. Anyways, all right. So this part is the inner ear. So what happens is that when sound waves, they are concentrated into the ear, the external ear, from there they are passed to the eardrum. So when they reach the eardrum, the waves are turned into vibrations and passed on to the middle ear, ossicles. These 3 bones, as we have discussed, malleus, incus, and stapes. So what happens is that the place where the stapes is connected to the inner ear is known as oval window. This part is known as the cochlea. So what happens is that the vibrations from the outer ear reach the eardrum. From there, the vibrations travel to the middle ear by the ear ossicles, these 3 bones, and then they are delivered to the inner ear, to the cochlea, through the oval window. So once it enters the cochlea, these sound waves are turned into electrical impulses and passed on to the brain to be detected as sound waves through the auditory nerve. Okay, so this is the basic process of how we detect sound. So what happens is that they have asked us what is the function of these 3 bones. So since I said that they receive the vibrations, the sound waves from their drum and send them to the cochlea, that can be one point. And another point can be that their basic function is the amplification of sound signals, basically. That is done in the transmitting the sound waves from their drum, turning them into sound signals, sound vibrations, and then transferring them to the cochlea so that they can be sent as electrical impulses to the auditory nerve, to the CNS of the brain. All right, so let's answer the question. I have answered this part right over here, that they amplify sound signals, transmitting sound vibrations from the eardrum to the cochlea. So since it is a 2-marker question, so according to their role, so the marks are that they amplify sound signals and transmit the sound vibrations. And then the next mark is that from cochlea, the eardrum to the cochlea. Okay, so this is basically, as you can see, this is basically my 2 marks. So move on to the next question. This is part D, and it says that the auditory nerve contains sensory neurons. Draw a diagram of a sensory neuron in a space below. Add the following levels to the diagram: axon, cell body, dendron, and myelin sheath. So since they asked us about the diagram, here I have the diagram that has been shown in the mark scheme basically. So as you can see, this is a sensory neuron that has been drawn. It is also, the diagram is available in your textbook. You can always check from there. Okay, so this white part is the myelin sheath, and the axon is basically the middle part. This blue line between the myelin sheaths, this one is the axon. Okay, and this one is the cell body, and the dendron is this long part, which is the total length. Okay, so this is the dendron. So since we have mentioned all 4, moving on to the last part of the question, part E. Part E here states that explain how damage to the auditory nerve might affect hearing. So it is a 3 marker question. Okay. So since here they have spoken about the auditory nerve, we know that the auditory nerve is basically responsible for transmitting the electrical impulses that are formed from the sound vibrations received by the inner ear. And these electrical impulses are transmitted, detected by the auditory nerve, and then transmitted to the CNS of the brain, where they can be detected as the sound that we hear. But since there is a damage in the auditory nerve, it means that the auditory nerve might not be now able to detect the sound vibrations that have been turned into electrical impulses effectively. Hence, it means that the electrical impulses are not transmitted to the CNS of the brain. This means that the brain detects no sound. A permanent damage to the auditory nerve might cause a permanent hearing loss or such conditions. However, a temporary disease or a temporary damage to the auditory nerve might result in reduction of hearing. Perhaps people will hear less. Okay. So since we have discussed this, let's answer the question. As you can see here, I have answered the question. It says that damage to the auditory nerve might result in reduced hearing. So, because impulse is not detected from the cochlea, okay, and therefore the impulses are not transmitted to the CNS of the brain. Okay, so the first mark, since it's a 3 marker question, the first mark comes over here. The damage to the auditory nerve might result in reduced hearing, which is the effect that we mentioned. And why? The reason is that because impulse is not detected from the cochlea, okay, and therefore the impulses are not transmitted to the CNS of the brain. This is the result. Okay, so here we have solved the question. We have reached the end over here. So let me know if you have any other problems, any other questions, and thank you for watching the video.